We're joined live by criminal defense lawyer Joseph Neuberger. Thanks again for joining us, Joseph. This seems, when you hear situations like this where the officers claiming that we tried to identify ourselves multiple times, and then you have Zameer saying we didn't, that wasn't the case. This is a case of a kind of he said, she said. What do you make of this, and how do you think that's going to sit with the judge?
Yeah, so it's really more for the jury, as this is a jury trial. But I think the issue here is how will you determine credibility and reliability at the end of the day of Mr. Zameer and then this very crucial Crown witness, this officer. Clearly, the defense is going after this officer about a previous police misconduct issue, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't seem to be that significant, but we do hold police officers to a much higher standard when it comes to integrity and honesty. So it may have an impact with respect to credibility. It does seem, though, from an objective view, that the officers approached and would have at least identified themselves in some way, indicating to Mr. Zameer that they were not random individuals, but were police. And then Mr. Zameer will have to testify and give his version of events. He clearly was in fear. I mean, I find it difficult that he wanted to or intended to kill anybody, given the circumstances he's there with his family. But this is going to be, again, coming down to the facts and a very critical analysis of the credibility and reliability of these two key witnesses.
And, given the fact that I'm sure from, what you're saying and what we're learning is that, Mr. Zameer there wasn't intent to kill this police officer. It wasn't premeditated, but at the end of the day, an officer lost his life in the line of duty. And I'm wondering, how this is, why you think the Crown didn't maybe just opt for a manslaughter charge rather than trying to go for first-degree murder.
So again, because it's a police officer who dies in the line of duty, it's a first-degree murder. And I think from the analysis from the Crown's end is, given the actions and the movements of the vehicle of Mr. Zameer, that he certainly met a standard of wanting to cause bodily harm or murder, knowing that he is taking actions that are highly dangerous, likely to impact the officer who passed away. So I think their view of the facts is that giving the maneuvering and the actions, that will substantiate factually their case, as well as should be able to draw an inference about his mental intent. We can all debate that, and it's clearly a tragic situation, but I think they also want to protect, officers who, as I think I said before with you, they're in a vulnerable situation when they're pursuing an investigation like this.
I want to talk about the whole issue of reasonable doubt and whether or not how important that is, especially when it comes to whether or not there was reasonable doubt that these officers didn't identify themselves. These are, veteran police officers. You have to assume that they were most likely or allegedly following protocol. What do you make of that?
Yeah, so, again, these are veteran officers who are clearly investigating a stabbing. So they are going down into the underground for the specific purpose of trying to find a suspect. So one would imagine they're going to follow protocol and identify themselves, which in the standard is really what happens. Again, a lot will determine on the state of mind and the perception of Mr. Zameer. You raised the point about reasonable doubt. We have very important principles. That is, the Crown must prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, which is an extremely high threshold, and there is the presumption of innocence that remains with Mr. Zameer up to the time that the jury renders a decision. So these factors are very important, and if the evidence of Mr. Zameer and his wife is very compelling, it may very well raise a reasonable doubt about what he perceived at that time, why he was in fear, and why he acted in that manner, and that can raise a reasonable doubt.
Criminal defense lawyer Joseph Neuberger, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.